Hi, I'm Supermoon Tarot, and in today's video, we are going to be finding out what your past life wants you to know now. This is something I don't think that I fully comprehended or so deeply appreciated until recently. I've always thought it was a cool concept and believed in it, but it's not until you experience it yourself that you're like, oh, this heals on such a core, deep level I didn't know. And I've been recently having some past life regressions, and I'm laughing because they are unintentional. It's like one moment I'm in my living room meditating, just chilling out, having a nice time, and the next I am a little boy in the 1850s, and somebody is handing me a wooden train as like a peace offering. It's a truly bizarre experience, and the second I would always realize, oh wait, is this a past life regression? Boom, I'm pulled out of it. So I haven't gotten very far in these moments. They're more like snippets of memories until yesterday, and I had my first kind of like very deep lifetime view and lesson learning from this past life version of myself, and I wanted to share it with you because I don't know, I think these things are fun to hear about, and maybe it might be helpful to you. So this is what I'm hoping for out of the tarot reading today. So I'll try to make this short, but essentially what happened was I was pulled to a version of myself. I was probably like 13, and I was a boy, and I was in Russia. I can't quite place the date. I just know that it would have been at least like 150 years ago, and maybe a little later than that potentially. But I remember I was standing in the cutout. By the way, it's really windy here, so sorry if you can hear the wind going crazy. I was standing in the door frame of our farm next to the house. We were living in a wooded area with my family, and I remember the cows were behind me, and it was before sunrise, and I had like a button nose, and I had kind of like blondishy, dirty blonde hair, more on the blonde side, and I had a flowy peasant top and a vest over it, and I remember I was barefoot, and it was before the sun had come out, and I was going to go for a run, and I did not do this as a form of exercise. I did this because it was the only time of day I could get a chance to be by myself, and it was like a very free-spirited kind of act, and it was something that just totally embodied everything to my core being. Like my core being loved feeling magical and connected to, that sense of the wind going through your hair. Ironically, the wind's going crazy, and just was very happy, and that was like my core being. And this was the only time I could do this because my past self was very frightened of their father. And so I would go barefoot as a way to feel, more free. And it was a great way to sneak out of the house. But like my past self would go running in like snow. It was wild. So then I was later pulled to a memory of when this past version of myself was older and had children of their own, and their hair had gotten like really, really dark, like raven black hair, and just like their father. And I remember looking at my two children, the past version of myself, two children who now had hair like I did when I was little, and they looked very frightened of me. And I had become a version of my father. This is all past self versions, and the terrible thing was my past version of their self was very aware of this. Like it was like they were very sensitive and afraid of all the things they were becoming as they grew older, and they weren't able to combat it and weren't sure how to fight it off, and were very sensitive about it, and that gets me emotional talking about. And so as they got older, they never lost that version of themselves that was aware and thought it was wrong and was very sensitive and connected to magic, but the version of themselves that I guess was most likely a version of their father that they adapted became the stronger part of themselves that they projected. So whenever they did something they didn't agree with, there was always that internal monologue in their head where they were like, don't do this, don't be like this is awful. Like they simultaneously could connect to to their kids and see how much pain they were going through and what they were causing, and they were not even able to stop themselves, and it really deeply upset them to cause that sort of fear the way they did. And then as I was like, oh my gosh, and like taking that in, then it rewound and took me to a version of myself when I was like, again, 13. So this must have been after the running with the woods type of experience, where I had to take away the life of my first bunny. And I just remember seeing it on the tree stump. It was extremely emotional and traumatizing. It was something that my past self just couldn't comprehend and didn't know why it needed to be done. And it was like kind of forced on them to do it. And then as I could feel that the like window or whatever was kind of closing, I asked my past self, like, is there anything I should know? Is there anything I should learn from this experience that you learned? And they were, it was like a circle was closing in between us. And it was the first time they turned and talked to me, and I could, like, they were speaking in Russian, but I could understand them. And they were shouting so many things, and all of it made sense, but it was so overwhelming because they were very like anxious, aware that the door was closing, and they were trying to like quickly tell me everything. And as it was coming on to me in real life, I could feel I was crying in my like conscious body, and I was like, my eyes were flickering. It was like crazy. And the thing that stands out to me most that I can really acutely remember them shouting as they went, they said, let go. Nothing is worth it. Just let go. And then that's when I woke up. So, intense and really cathartic. And yeah, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And it was kind of inspiring me to like, obviously do this. So on that note, as you can see, we have 6 groups in front of us. We have 6 different stones. We have malachite, pink opal, leopard skin jasper, angelite, smoky citrine, and moonstone. I'm going to give you a moment to pick the group that you resonate with most. I will just give you a second to do so. Now that you've picked the group that you resonate with most, please go down to the description. Group number 1, let's find out what your past life wants you to know now. Before I get started, I just want to already pre-apologize for the wind. It makes a very loud, high squeak. I can't do anything about it. I already changed locations so you don't hear my neighbor. We're going to do the best we can. Anyways, let's look at the cards. We have 2 of Wands in reverse, the Lovers upright, Page of Pentacles upright, Ace of Wands in reverse, and Ace of Pentacles upright. You can already hear the wind going. This is actually really great. It's a little sad, but essentially what's going on here is the lesson that you learned in the previous lifetime, unfortunately, it was not learned because it was never like your past self never did it, and then they regretted it, and now they're telling you what they should have done, and it probably would have turned out different for them is the best way to say it. So they're basically asking if you can please fulfill what they did not have the courage to fulfill before. And courage is an important thing with this theme. It's this fear-based problem that prevented them from moving forward. Now, the main thing I'm picking up is the angel number 441, but it doesn't quite make sense yet, because we'll get more into this. So essentially, we have the Lovers card. It looks like there was some sort of promise being made to somebody close to them. This could have been anyone from a romantic partner to a coworker to a family member, whatever it is, it feels close to them. And it feels like, I'm going to pull some more cards, but it feels like it didn't work out. And we're going to talk about why it didn't work out specifically, because your past self was the main reason why it didn't work out, based on their own personal decisions. But I want to understand what the promise essentially was. So it's pretty much just repeats the same thing. It was someone close to them. I know it was important. Okay, we're just not gonna tell me. Okay, so sometimes with tarot, it will not allow you to get too specific on certain subjects. A lot of the time, this is for your own good because you're either not ready for it, blah, blah, blah. In this case, because past lives are so sensitive and personal, I kind of get more of the feeling that this is based on the cards don't want me to know. This is your own personal information to know. So definitely tonight when you're about to dream, ask yourself if that past version of yourself can show you whatever this promise it was. But either way, I can tell you that, yes, unfortunately, it didn't work out. It seems like this was something that was going to able you guys as a unit, you and this other person, to move forward successfully in some way. This could have been earning more money, having greater social status, building a closer connection with each other. Whatever it was, it didn't fall through, unfortunately. This is mostly due to the Two of Wands in reverse. This is so sad yet understandable. This is when somebody has a deep fear of change. And so it starts to lead to them being more indecisive and kind of making excuses and feeling all over the place and unable to come up with a clear, decisive course of action. This definitely shows up when people feel it is safer to just kind of continue with their everyday humdrum life than to deal with change. Like they choose that, and that clearly was not what this other person you made this promise for happened. Like they didn't want that. They wanted to grow, they wanted to change, they wanted to have more passion and excitement, and that was for whatever reason really difficult for your person and self. And so that's the main thing that fell through. And the thing over here with the Page of Pentacles is we can see that there was an offer made in order, like there was like an opportunity made to help your past self gain whatever it is they were promising something else, but they just were not into it. So this is when, like, let's say your past self, this was a romantic partner and they wanted, you guys as a family to earn more money. And then somebody reached out to you and was like, I have a job opportunity, we'll make you more money, blah, blah, blah. But maybe it involves a lot of traveling or something like that. And that scared your past self. They didn't want to deal with the danger. They didn't want to be away from the person they cared about. Whatever it was, they decided not to do it. And they, either way, they were not into it at all. And it, again, prevented them from growing in any sort of way. But I wanted a better clarification of like, the Ace of Wands is interesting because you can view it as two different ways. You can view it as like they just weren't into it. It wasn't their personal interest, which is understandable, but that doesn't seem like a bad thing if you don't want to follow your dreams because you're not into the dream that's being offered to you. That's like a normal thing. But this more feels like potential was being squashed or not met for whatever reason. So I just want to better understand. Oh. Yeah, okay. So now the 441 makes a lot of sense. So over here, it seems like the main excuse your past self was telling themselves was that they weren't ready. They needed to learn more, study more, gain more skills. But the reality was they were just constantly rereading the same books, teaching themselves skills they already knew, being way too self-analytical, and it was honestly more pulling them apart than it was adding to anything. They were ready, they were capable, and they just were preventing themselves from realizing their full potential. Potential is a key thing in this spread, I'll notice over and over again. Like, your past self had all of this potential bursting constantly at the seams. We can see it here, 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 we can see it here. But over here with the Knight of Wands, when this is in reverse, this is when like you start feeling scattered. Scatterbrained is a good word for it. And you start to feel like you're being pulled apart at the seams. It's kind of very much similar to like how people with ADHD feel. It's like you're too excited everywhere and then you're not sure where to go, so all of a sudden you feel really stunted and pull away and pull inwards and feel down, if that makes sense. The 441, now that I'm holding you in probably so much suspense, talks about, it's when your spirit guides are trying to say to you, hey, listen, you need to change up your workflow, and that's where the practical advice comes in. You are not working as like efficiently and as effectively as you possibly could. You need to change it up. You need to switch it up. We're going to be sending a lot of positive vibes around you. We're going to be giving you that support in order to kind of give you some more focus, some more energy, and just, obviously if there's nothing negative around you, it's easier to work around with that. So they essentially want you, like, in general, your past self is saying, listen, stop being afraid of change. What you think is going to give you comfort is actually hurting you and squashing you. You have a lot of potential. Lean into that. Lean into the unknown. Definitely, it still has that element of, like, for sure, like, definitely be somebody who is smart and intellectual the way they approach it. Definitely have a plan and study, and all of those things gave you the opportunity, but you do need to still take it. And in addition to that, your spirit guides are like, make sure that you're more aware of how you're doing it. Like, if you're not seeing the results that you want in the speed and the time that you want to receive them, you need to switch it up. But yeah, that's the main thing I'm seeing here. Trust in yourself, trust in your beliefs, and change some stuff up, because sometimes you just gotta do that. I hope this was helpful, and if it was, please consider giving the video a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, have a lovely day. I will see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2, let's find out what your past life wants you to know now by looking at the cards. We have the Hierophant in reverse, Ace of Wands in reverse, Page of Wands in reverse, oh, the Empress upright, and the Tower in reverse. Everybody and their mother is terrified of this card, but this is not a bad card, especially not when it's in reverse. It's intense, but often intensity comes with a lot of great change or life lesson learning, or imagine you get a new apartment in New York City. Is that a bad big change? Not really. So in this particular case, this is kind of like the evidence to see that this issue that we're talking about in this one is something you're dealing with now, you dealt with in this past lifetime, and many other lifetimes before. This is a lesson that's been going on for a while, and you really need to learn it and conquer it now. You are meant to, you should, it's going to make your life better. It's kind of like imperative you do. I'm getting that imperative vibe very strongly from this. I don't know why. So let's talk about, I'm going to pull some more cards because this is a general reading. So in this case, this can be talking about a specific person or an ideal that you have. Either way, this is kind of like pressure being put onto you. And then we have over here your core being and how you'd like to operate. And it seems like there is a collision. And when these come together, it kind of stops the whole flow of potential, essentially. We're talking about creative stuff, especially creative stuff. We're talking about the potential you have to make things happen into existence. So we're talking about projects, pursuing your dreams, ideas coming into light, working on creative projects, especially, and putting them out there. Whatever it is, there seems to be this thing that, if this isn't in the right flow, these things aren't lining up, whatever. We're going to put this in a much more understandable context as we pull a couple more cards. This is just when things collide. But let's look over here with the, I'm feeling more drawn to the Hierophant. All right. Did I say imperative? Because I think I did. Oh. All right, imperative. All right, okay. Let's get into it. Okay, so yeah, this is still, this is for sure still, okay, this is a general reading, so I'm trying to be a very wide scope audience here. But let's start off with this situation going on here. In many cases, this is going to refer to a straight up mother or like mother type figure. This is somebody who's older than you or just seems to kind of have like their opinion seems to dominate your thoughts a lot. I do want to remind you that sometimes our mother type figures in our life can be our friends that are even younger than us or only, a year older than us. And this person just holds some sort of weight in your life. I'm just giving you a general context of that idea. For other people, this is like an over idyllic version of beauty, aesthetics. This is how you want everything to kind of, I don't want to say perfectionism. It's more of like you have this ideal, you're really drawn to a certain look, you like things to feel a certain way. It's really important to you. Either way, it feels like it's this pressure, it's this idea that if things are this certain way, there'll be this version of success. And the idea of success is kind of you're putting too much pressure on yourself with it. So in some cases, the mother figure is saying to you, this is how I think things should be. I want it to be like this way. This is how you'll get success. You should want success. This is the thing that you want. Don't you want to grow? Don't you want these things? And it feels like their thoughts are a little too involved with your personal projects. It's like, who cares if they want you to paint it green? You want to make it blue. You know what I mean? Like, live your life type of thing. But either way, their thoughts are definitely too dominating in this way. And for other people, as it's totally great that you have this aesthetic, but because you're kind of holding on too much, restricting yourself too much, there's too much like thought that you can't deviate from this, it has to be a certain way. There's too much constriction around it, and you're not letting yourself sometimes just be in the moment of creating it, of thinking of the idea, of working it out or extending its ideas and letting it have a more limitless boundary. And there's just like, you're so locked onto this idea being the only key to success. It's creating the Page of Wands, which is when like ideas don't kind of get started. Things aren't working out. Page of Wands upright is like this excitement, potential. You're taking hold of a project. You've just bought the sketchbook. You're opening it up and you're filling it in. And reverse is like you dropped it in a puddle, you say you're going to draw on it and after it dries, but it's been a couple weeks and you kind of can't seem to get there. It's too much pressure being put onto you. And then over here we have the Hierophant. This shows that you definitely have your own way about expressing these ideas. It's definitely much more unique. It's not commonplace. You're definitely going to take the road less traveled, which is great. That's how you thrive. That's the best way to express yourself. You're going to have an easier time doing it. But this form of like, it has to fit this box is what's killing you, because that's not who you are. You're definitely a lot, would quirky be too, I know that people don't like that word anymore, but it's a good thing for you. Do you know what I mean? I'm so apprehensive to use it because so many people use it as like a mean joke. I'm not using it as a mean joke. I mean it in a good way. So over here, this is kind of your warning. The Strength card in reverse shows us that when you start to doubt yourself and you are not confident in yourself enough to express this, you're like, oh, I don't know, not everyone else is doing it. You start to feel apprehensive that it's even a good idea because you don't have enough people to look up to in order to do that. And you're also being told internally or by someone else, this is the only way to success, and you're not realizing that there's multiple paths and you're going to form your own. The more you self-doubt yourself, this is when we get the 10 of Swords. In some cases, in particular this past life, it made a kind of a dark, grisly end. I don't want to freak you out, but yeah, it did not work. It's like you either believe in yourself and kill it and do incredibly well, or it works out horribly. You kind of have a very extreme path situation in this past life, and I can see why they are so desperately trying to have you understand, to get over it and say like, you just follow your heart, take the unconventional path, please learn from my horrible mistake. You know what I mean? Because over here we have the Ace of Wands. The more you kind of like prevent yourself from being your true version and kind of giving more confidence and trust to that part of yourself, because this is really truly your core happiness. If you ignore that, this is when we get the Ace of Wands. This is when you kind of like lose all interest for it. You lose the momentum and the potential for the project coming to life. Again, we talk about these two things coming together. Now, the interesting thing is, if this was upright, these would be two flame cards, two flame element cards. And when you put two fires together, oh my goodness, you have one big raging blaze in a good way. And so there's a lot of potential going on here. You've always had the potential, but try not to constrict yourself. Do not let someone else be involved in constricting you. Do whatever you need to do to cut them out, whether it just be doing your projects or whatever you need to work on under an alias or without them knowing. Just don't tell them about it. Don't involve them so they can't insert themselves. And slowly build up like that inner voice so if you start to say, oh, I don't know, not everyone else is doing this, I'm not sure if it's stop. Change those thoughts immediately. It's going to be popular. I'm the one who's going to be the innovator, the person that's leading the way. I'm super cool. You know what I mean? Like all those positive things, because this has been plaguing you for some time, and I don't think you deserve to go through it anymore. Your past self certainly learned that horrible, hard lesson, and let's change these wand situations to a huge positive. Somebody's so excited to start something they're truly passionate about. You were meant to live that in this lifetime, and I believe you deserve it. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, have a lovely day. I will see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 3. Group number 3. Let's find out what your past life wants you to know now by looking at the cards. We have 7 of Wands in reverse, the Hermit in reverse, Ace of Swords upright, Knight of Wands in reverse, Queen of Pentacles upright, ooh, okay, this is fun. Okay, I'm definitely going to pull some more cards so we can get more specific, but the main thing that I'm taking from here is like your main entire goal right now is to focus on the idea of like the absolute truth. The Ace of Swords is like an epiphany, awareness, good judgment, mental clarity, but it's the concept that whatever you are seeing, you are understanding it fully. You totally comprehend it. You are making this decision with wisdom, with good intuition, a lot of stuff. But whatever it is, it's like this pursuit of whatever that clarity is, whatever that epiphany, that truth is you need, is so vital. It looks like you're working extremely hard to make it happen. You're being given advice as to how to pursue it. But I want to understand, like, what is it that it is? Oh my goodness, no wonder it's so imperative. It looks like whatever this truth is, whatever this understanding is imperative to your ultimate success. This is success with recognition from people. This is good money. This is a very happy and joyous form of success, of everyone being like, you're killing it, and you feel like you're killing it, and you're kind of showing off. Oh, I hit my cards. You're kind of showing off and feeling like the best version of yourself. But, okay, yeah, Ace of Wands, we're going to be a little bit vague here, of course. When it comes to past lives, I find that when it comes to general readings, they tend to hide certain information from me because they don't want it to be public to me and to other people. So this is the type of stuff that you want to ask yourself before you dream tonight. Like, hey, past self, what is this really specific thing I needed to know in order? Because, like, they don't want to tell me it for whatever reason. With Ace of Wands, it does give me an inkling. This is the passion, like, you would want to do career-wise. And so it's saying, like, what is it that you truly want to do? How do you want to do it? Be really specific. Don't hold back in any way. So, like, let's say you want to be an artist. Don't sell yourself short if you don't want to be a graphic designer, but you think that's the only way to do it. It doesn't have to be. And you're basically asking yourself, that deep level question, like how do you want to spend your days doing what you do and how you do it, essentially. I do want to go over, let's go over these first and then we'll talk about this, because this is pretty interesting. So over here we have the Queen of Pentacles. She represents a couple different things. So in many ways she represents talking about your skill set, saying this is like a beautiful positive affirmation of saying you have the ability to manifest the thing that you want because you are able to create it on your own. You have the skill set for it, you have the experience for it, you can make something out of nothing. So this is kind of like the confidence booster, being like, you've got this, you can do this, you've worked many lifetimes for this sort of intelligence and ability to naturally pick up things. It's now time in this lifetime to do that, essentially. This does also talk about your past self is a little bit like unapologetically saying like, listen, if you need money and you need somebody to pay for something in order to make it happen, do it. Take their money. Let them be your patron. So that's really cute. And like, they're like, don't feel any worry or shame about it. It's okay to lean on other people in order to get ahead initially. That's not a bad thing. But then over here, we have this decisive action from you. So this is like you really going out of your way to not only seek that truth, but make it happen. So if this does relate to something, now this is primarily, I'll be honest with you, I'm mostly picking up, this is something like career oriented, but let's say this, the truth and intent in this case situation was a relationship. This is like going out and putting yourself out on, dating apps and like going out of your way to seek that person and say, listen, people, this is what I stand for, this is what I want, and finding it. So in this case, for jobs, you'd be going out of your way to ask everyone you know actively, not lying down. Lots of enthusiasm, excitement, letting people know you've got it, you've got the fire, you've got the desire and inspiration, and they should be lucky enough to have you on their team. You know what I mean? And then over here, we have the Hermit. This shows that you've done enough. You know what you want. You've done enough time to figure it out. If you're still struggling for it, look back at what you've already experienced. What did you not like? Do you not like working long hours? Do you hate when you're put in a position to have to work for other people? Do you like when you make something and then somebody else, other people like it? Like what's your method? You've done enough self-analysis. Now is the time to go out and put it all together and make it mean something. But the interesting thing here is it looks like somebody was definitely like protecting them during this time period, and you're being protected now in order, because a lot of this like passion and everything and time to like understand yourself and grow, it doesn't mean there aren't bumps along the way, and this all feels super pure. It feels very uninterrupted by people pulling you down, but it feels like somebody or something does try to actively come at you. But you're constantly being defended. So this is great. This is like kind of the confidence of like keeping yourself, keep pursuing it, keeping like to do this is a very vulnerable act, and you're being protected along the way. And I want to understand like what's protecting you during such a vulnerable time period. So oh, okay, so this doesn't tell me, I'm going to pull another card to see. This doesn't tell me who's defending you, but it looks like you're being defended against, this almost feels like a family situation, like maybe your family doesn't agree with you. They definitely just can't let down their beliefs of how they feel things should go, what you're oh, I'm so sorry if you can hear the wind. Draft in the window, I can't do anything about it. It's a very cute high-pitched sound. Hopefully we'll stop in a moment. Whatever it is, it seems like they just can't let up their opinion. It's so important for them to express it. They're not fully able to hear yours. It's not like if it gives you any sort of like calm or relief, they're not trying to pull you down, and they're not trying to they don't take any joy or maliciousness in trying to have you bend to their side. It's that they can't hear what you have to say because they just want to keep repeating what they have to say. So it's kind of like they're deafening you by their own beliefs, but they're not meaning to. They're just stubborn. Whatever it is, there's definitely defense and protection around you. It seems like you have a lot of more than luck on your side. I want to see. Oh, yep, your spirit guides are watching over you. Well, that seems obvious. So that's cool. You're being watched over. It looks like this actually specific past self is also watching over you too, which is really interesting. Huh. I never thought about that. Cool, you'll learn something new every day. So, anyways, the basic thing you want to take from this is that you need to really sit down, ask yourself what it is that you want to do, be really specific about it. You want to come at it with the most grounded, most honest, like be brutally honest with yourself, kind of aiming for the truth and stuff like this, because when you follow this, you're going to have a lot of success. You're going to achieve this by being proactive, understanding what you've already experienced in life this far, and what you liked and didn't like in order to kind of come to this like logical conclusion. Definitely trust in yourself. You've earned it from many past lifetimes, this lifetime. Also, my speaker keeps telling me, I know it makes me laugh, but your past self just keeps being like, if someone gives you money, take it. And you're definitely being protected because it looks like some people cannot take your pursuit. Yeah, I think it bothers them because I think you're just as strong-willed as they are, and they can't help but some people are like this. What can you do? But you're being protected. So yay! Shout out to your spirit guides for being lovely. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed doing it. Consider giving it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, have a beautiful day. I will see you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 4. Group number 4. Let's find out what your past life wants you to know now by looking at the cards. We have 2 of Wands in reverse, Ace of Cups in reverse, the Devil card in reverse, the Sun card in reverse, and the 5 of Cups upright. Interesting. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit broad, but sometimes it's that way. I've actually said this a couple times now. Sometimes our past lives want to be kind of vague with us, especially if it's a general reading, because, past lives are an intimate thing. So it might not be something that, the cards want the general public to know about. So they're vague on certain subjects. You can just, before you go to bed tonight, ask, what was this? Can you get more specific about this? So we're mostly focusing around the idea of toxicity and bad habits. Now, these bad habits can be anything from you keep choosing bad relationships, people you know are not good for you. This could be some way you put yourself down, like a mindset. It's the idea of like having a lot of something, then none at all, and restricting yourself. It's like peaks and valleys. It's a lot of just toxicity is the best way we can put it. Either way, the Devil in reverse is awesome because it's all about breaking those habits. But these are kind of our walls, these things in your past life that prevented yourself in the past from breaking these sort of habits. So it looks like you need to overcome something now, and these are things to keep in mind. So over here we have the 2 of Wands. This is somebody who feels they are too afraid to move forward and progress and therefore change, so they choose to stick to what they're doing now. They want to stick to the everyday boring life. It's safer, it's easier than having to kind of act and move forward in some form of way, but it's more than change. It's like starting to make the moves in order to change, thinking about like, well, how will I progress, and then taking action to do so. And the main thing I can see that's that's holding them back over here was the Ace of Cups in reverse. This feels relevant to your situation now. So this is when you feel like you close yourself off emotionally. This is just kind of not trusting people, not trusting yourself. There's just some form of a wall up there in some sort of way. I'm going to get more specific about this in a second because there are some good things being told about this. This isn't strictly bad to kind of cut yourself off from other people in this way. But this emotional wall and feeling like you can't open up, you can't trust, it's easier to kind of stay as you are, so to speak, is what's preventing you from moving towards what you need, which is to break free of this habit. Now, I feel like we get a little better insight of what that habit is when we look over here. So the Five of Cups upright is definitely a perspective thing, because this is somebody who is deeply upset, right? And we're going to come back to that in a moment because we have the Sun card in reverse. The Sun card is showing that whatever you're asking for, this thing that you want, whenever you're trying to achieve the thing that you desire, whether this be a nice relationship or a job, or you just want things to work out the way you want them to work out, it seems like there's a lot of positive stuff going on around you right now. But even though there is, you're being too picky. This is when, let's say you wanted, you're moving in, and you wanted to have the most peaceful situation ever, the ideal roommate and everything like that. And it's like you got a good room, but you're still upset that maybe you occasionally, hear some loud noise once in a blue moon, and you're just really focused on it. It's not all the time, it's just once in a while, a little bit loud. And you're just focused too much on that. And therefore not enjoying that 90% of it is pretty freaking great. And there's a lot of good in it, and you should enjoy it. But by focusing on this pickiness and the things that you don't like too much and emphasizing it too much, it creates this feeling of grief and loss, and it's so intense, and this starts to build and build and build. But we talked about a perspective thing. See how some of the cups in the picture are spilt, but some aren't? Turn around, girl. There's some other cups. There's some great stuff around you. Is that not cool that happens occasionally? Yeah, it would be great if it was 100%. But it's still pretty darn cool. You still got some cups up. And that looks like that pickiness and that closed offness is what's preventing this habit needing to be broken. And if it's not broken, that toxicity just kind of continues and builds. I don't want to scare you. It's nothing dramatic. It's just not fun to go through. And it's like, if you want to break that, if you want to stop thinking like that, if you want to stop attracting that in your life, these are things to keep in mind. But I just wanted to pull a couple more cards because Spirit is telling me to, so I will. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. This just kind of repeats it a little bit. This is kind of like some extra positive messages. So again, this is somebody coming out of their closed off perspective, like we talked of here. I forgot to mention this. We're going to come back to this in a second. I totally forgot to mention this. Sometimes, though, the good thing about the Ace of Cups in reverse is it does mention that sometimes we need to be selfish in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So while it is good to be more open, and you were being asked to strive for that, especially with this double confirmation over here with the Four of Pentacles in reverse, don't forget that if you need to, like the Four of Pentacles over here, if there are times when you don't feel you have that part of yourself to give, that's okay. That is all right. But in this case, back to this spread over here, when the Four of Pentacles is here, this is so much different than the Fool. This is like someone aggressively trying to let loose. Like, it's hard for them. It is like a screw it kind of attitude. Sometimes it's negative. In this case, it's not. It's like saying you're going to have to kind of force yourself a little bit to open up. You're going to have to just kind of throw caution to the wind, be like, all right, fine, begrudgingly, and understand that you're ready to. This is somebody who thinks that they previously had not a lot to give, energy, emotion, time, whatever, but you are ready now. You're ready to go. But you're coming out of a time period where it wasn't like that for so long. So it's kind of tough to, it's kind of like, it's kind of like it's kind of like guidance saying, yeah, it's going to be hard. Just keep pushing through that. The Queen of Pentacles is awesome. It's the confirmation that, like, you've got this. You can make something out of nothing. This is a great manifestation card. You can overcome this toxicity in your life, and therefore greatness awaits you right behind it, kind of thing. And the Ace of Swords is awesome because it says that while you might not feel like you're in the best place because you're fighting against the part of yourself that wants to close things off and is surrounded by some toxicity and can sometimes have a perspective that is focusing too much on the negative rather than the positive. Yet, all of that, you're being told that with the Ace of Swords upright, you actually have much better mental clarity and judgment than you realize. You are much better than you were aware of to see the situation clearly. You are able to identify what the toxicity is and where there are flaws. It's like, well, you might see yourself as somebody who has these problems. The fact that you're seeing them is a really great sign. You're able to identify them and therefore able to handle them. And compared to someone who's just like, I don't know what's going on at all. You know what's going on. You're smart. Use your mind in order to open your heart up and like work with it, if that makes sense. Sometimes you gotta lead with your heart. In this case, your mind is holding hands with your heart and guiding it forward, protecting it, definitely defending it. And now is the time to kind of move forward. You're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to open up. You're allowed to get everything you want, and you're also allowed to kind of aggressively shout to that toxic situation or pattern in your life that you don't need it anymore. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be both really open and healing and in the process while simultaneously kind of getting everything you want. You know what I mean? Toxicity will make you think otherwise, but this is just not the case for you. So I hope this video was useful and helpful. If it was, please consider giving this video a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, have a beautiful day. I will see you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 5. Group number 5. Let's find out what your past life wants you to know now. I didn't show this in the intro, because I thought if I showed it, people might pick it more, and I wanted people to pick based more on their intuition, but I don't know if you can see. This citrine is particularly special to me because, I don't know if you can see it from the angle, but this is a naturally occurring angel wings. Can you see it in there? Super, super special. My super, super protection. So this is great. This actually protects me when I'm doing tarot, so I thought I'd show you that. Very cool, isn't that? Anyways, let's find out what's going on with the Ace of Pentacles in reverse, the Fool card upright, 8 of Swords upright, the Hierophant in reverse, and the Queen of Cups in reverse. Oh my, your past self is so confused. So confused. Hold on, let me, what are you trying to say? Sorry, your past self is like really, hold on. Okay, your poor past self is still going through the gigs, it feels like. Okay, so we're gonna talk more about those other cards I pulled, but they're kind of a little bit redundant, but of course, you know, we're gonna talk about them. So I'm going to do the best I can with this, because instead of your past self being very upfront about specifically what it is, it's like they know all the ways things went wrong, but they're not quite sure what the answer is. So there's a lot of like being pulled in multiple directions, knowing what they wanted to do but couldn't do kind of scenarios. So the main culprit we have here is in the middle, the Eight of Swords. It feels like this is the main problem for you now. This is when you feel like you have some sort of obstacle in the way or you can't move forward because it feels like something's blocking you. Now, the thing is, often this pops up when it is, whether you realize it or not, it's your own self-limiting beliefs. This is a lack of believing in yourself. Sometimes, in some cases, if somebody is in your way, this pops up letting you know that you have more control over the situation than you were aware of, and you're giving them more control than you were aware of. And it's like saying, don't do that. You're the only one that can, sorry if you can hear the wind, little high-pitched sounds through my window at the draft. Anyways, so essentially, this is our main problem. It's feeling like they weren't able to move forward. There was always something, felt like they were in their own head too much, essentially. So this is where the problems continue of things that didn't work out for them. So because they were in their own head so much, they were like, you know what? Let me just I'm just going to let loose. I'm just going to put myself out there. I'm just going to take risks and have fun and go with the flow and be a little more free spirit as we have over here in the Fool card. And while those intentions were really good and they weren't knowingly trying to put themselves in any jeopardy or gambling situations, we're not talking about like actually doing that. We're talking about like a situation where you know you're in trouble or it's not a good idea. They didn't knowingly put themselves in any position, and yet it just didn't seem to invite any sort of, it didn't invite any trouble, but it didn't invite any opportunities of wealth. It didn't give them any position to grow. They again continue to feel stagnant. Often, in many cases, when you're manifesting and things like that, this is a great attitude and it often brings it, but it's like it wasn't the thing, it didn't solve the problem. Their self-limiting belief wasn't due to them being lack of free-spirited. That wasn't the case. They had the right attitude, they went into it with the right energy, but it honestly only scared away the opportunities. So that didn't work. So they know what didn't work. And then they tried, maybe they were feeling too stuck in their own mindset because they felt they had to conform to societal pressures and what everyone else had to do. So they tried to do the unconventional approach. And they were like, you know what, I'm just going to forge my own path, go about things my own way. But unfortunately, that wasn't their route either. That wasn't what they needed to go through. In fact, actually, it kind of made them feel more unhinged, more unsure, more emotionally imbalanced. So they just kind of felt back to square one, essentially. It just seems like they were pulled all over the place. They were aware something was in their way and was an obstacle. They tried actively to solve it and tried different things out, and nothing seemed to work. It only seemed to propel more things away. So they feel like they left that past lifetime as confused as when they started it, and there's just this general sense of confusion around the whole thing. This continues over here because this can represent your ancestors, but this can also represent your past self, basically saying, listen, right now, what you're going through is almost a form of like karma and a test from the universe, which is a good thing. It's like testing you in order to find what you really believe in, what you stand for. It's not necessarily a test of seeing you're worthy. Don't get that confused. That was something that I think they on and off dealt with within themselves, thinking like it meant something bigger, and it really doesn't. It's more to like uphold what you stand for. So it's kind of like you're being put in a position to figure out what you stand for and then stand for it. So in a weird way, you're being tested it's like they were meant to be tested. If they had been pushed, been like someone, putting themselves in a position of being like, listen, answer me right now, or I'm going to take away your favorite, snack. Tell me what you like. And then out of panic, they're like, I like this. They were never given that opportunity, and it looks like they kind of needed to be pushed up against the wall, so to speak. And the main thing that they're giving me like a hint of, the only thing they can kind of conclusively say is to not have a self-defeatist attitude. They kind of tried things, but always in their heart, they never felt like this was the thing they were always focused on. They could never see the end goal. They were already beating themselves up. They already felt there were obstacles. They already felt things were away. They at least knew that. They knew when they went into other things, this was this mindset of things being in their way, overthinking it. Again, that just general idea of self-limiting obstacles wasn't far from their mind, and that self-defeatist attitude really held them back in life. And that's like the main thing you were dealing with now. Like, how are you bringing yourself down? How are you involved with, like, the main thing with the Page of Swords to take in mind when it's in reversed is like being accountable and aware of what have your actions done in the past and led you here kind of concept. Not to like beat yourself up, and we're not even talking about like past life. It's like what has started, like what in the beginning, you go back to the beginning, what led you to taking on this sort of mindset and started building you up. The Page of Swords is great because it's kind of like saying there's hope. You're not too set in these beliefs. You can change them. You can, in this lifetime, you have time to grow and get out of this. But that's like the main clue I'm getting here, because like it just continues to be some sort of like gibberish, because again, this talks about control, saying like making amends with stop being so controlling about how you see things and perspective. This is a long-standing issue you really need to overcome. You've been dealing with it in this lifetime, the whole lifetime. You're dealing with it now. It feels like it's only been dealing with this lifetime and your lifetime, not multiple lifetimes. But nonetheless, again, more gibberish. They're really lost and confused and can't give the best advice. The main thing I'm getting from this is you just need to get out of your own head. You just need to take a break from yourself. Do whatever you can to put yourself in a position when you're making decisions for the next month to not feel like you're making it with any choice of consequence. Like, don't pick something because you think it's good or bad. Don't pick it because you're trying to act more free. Don't pick it because you think no one else did or someone else did or traditional or Just stop. Just stop. Breathe, go read a book, watch a good show, eat your favorite snacks. Do nothing. Let your brain be nothing. Do a huge reset. And then slowly, I mean this so slowly, day by day, pick one thing that you're going to make a decision about. And when you pick it, pick the first thing that comes to mind. Don't give it weight of what it needs or what it means. Nothing. Just reset, rediscover how you'd like to operate, because your poor past self was so lost and confused and had the best intentions, but they were all over the place. And they can't even give you the best advice now. They can give me inklings. They know they want it to stop. They know it's been an issue, but the poor person isn't giving the best advice. So hopefully that was helpful. This poor little sweetheart tried. And it looks like you're trying now, and you're going to do great. You're going to get over this. You're kind of being lovingly told, you're being pulled apart from too many different ends. A lot of good intentions. This is definitely the sign of someone that's hyper emotional and hyper intelligent. And my goodness, is that a messy combination, but the best combination when it flows nicely. Use it to your advantage. This is not a bad thing. But I speak for myself. I know what that feels like. It's intense when you're being pulled in all the different directions. So I feel for you. I really do. But you're going to get through this. You got this. Just go take a vacation from yourself and your thoughts. Just breathe, relax, just move forward, empty your mind. You deserve it. If you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed recording it, please consider giving it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel like you would not believe. Either way, have a beautiful day. I will see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 6. Group number 6. Let's find out what your past life wants you to know now by looking at the cards. Okay, we have 6 of Swords upright, the Chariot in reverse, 2 of Pentacles upright, the High Priestess in reverse, and the Devil card upright. Oh, okay, so I'm definitely going to pull some more cards so I can be very definitive about what is the specific thing they want you to know. But their past life can kind of, it almost like it could imply multiple things, which is why I'm going to like make sure we know what it is that you need to know. But let's talk about what happened to your past life specifically, because that's coming through the strongest. So over here, this shows that they were on some form of like a trip. They were, going to start a new life, and they were doing it with other people, and they were like helping those other people along the way. This could be anybody from like a romantic partner to family to whatever. People were depending on them, and they were all deciding to make this decision to go somewhere else and live somewhere else. Now, it seems like their place that they were trying to get to, this new life, these goals, these aspirations, got stopped. And they kind of got distracted along the way. It's like they had to deal with something else in order to progress, right? So they were like, okay, I'll fulfill, like maybe along the way, somebody was like, listen, you can't move to the next, island or country or whatever before you accomplish this task for me. And they were like, okay, I will do this thing for you. But unbeknownst to them, they got caught up in it becoming a career, as we can see over here. They did it, they did well at it, they picked it up rather easily, but it's something that was more of a distraction than any sort of goal. They still didn't meet the place they wanted to. They never fully accepted that the thing that they were doing was like good enough, or the thing that they wanted to do ultimately, and they were like, yeah, this is my life. Their thought was always like, oh, well, this is just temporary, but temporary became forever, and they never got that, if that makes sense. And they just kind of were stuck in that position. Now, the unfortunate thing is it seems like your past self, was extremely trusting and loving and doing the right thing. They were trying to help the people they were with. They decided to do this favor for this outside person in order to help everybody else move forward, but that in turn stopped them. They had a lot of good intentions and hope and trust in other people, but unfortunately, all of this was made out of poor judgment, I can see over here. And this then led to their kind of the person who to put it lightly, that put them in this position to make this deal was scamming them. They kind of caught them knowingly in a trap and in kind of imprisoned, indentured type of situation, always like, you owe me, you said you would do this, and kind of was taking advantage of a good person, unfortunately. And it was, I don't want to say their downfall, because I don't get a vibe that anything bad happened. I'm not seeing their death explicitly, but it just seems like they didn't get to live the rest of their dream doing what they wanted to do. They did something else. It was fine. They weren't being too taken advantage. I mean, they were being taken advantage of, but they weren't living a bad life. They just didn't have the job they wanted to do and be at the place they wanted to be. But I need to better understand, like, well, what is it that your past self wants you to know out of this circumstance? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, not bad at all. So the lover is somebody who is your true self, because this is definitely what's happening right now, which is really sweet. It's also very loving and very open. Somebody who naturally wants to get along with other people, can get along with other people, is able to easily cohabitate. Habitat? You know what I'm saying. And this is referring to both romantic relationships. This is referring to just general people you come in contact with. Whatever it is that you're experiencing relationship-wise, you are definitely, like, your main skill that you thrive at is being able to bring a good vibe, work well with them, benefit from them benefit from you, vice versa. And it's all about your loyalty and ability to make a promise and fulfill that. You definitely brought that over from the past lifetime. But your past self had that taken advantage of out of being good nature. You're being told that the second somebody starts to become too needy, is the best way I can say it, demanding too much of you, just kind of being overly dependent on you, because sometimes it's not about them taking advantage of you and then you doing a bunch of work for them because they have the upper hand and they're being manipulative. Sometimes people mean well, but if they're trying to suck you dry and ask you to report back to them all the time out of their own personal fears, this is kind of like the red flag. The other red flag is when they start to put too much of their own personal responsibilities on you. Should they be doing that? They be doing that errand? Should they be doing that chore? Should they be doing that? If you find they're asking too much of you, or even personally due to the circumstance of how this past life lived, I would start setting the parameter now of being like, you're not going to do nothing for no one until they show themselves. And then you can start to be like, yeah, I'll do the occasional favor for you. Yeah, sure. I mean, like, that's how you work and are so kind of easygoing and amicable with everybody. You're very open-hearted, and it's great that you don't mind doing these things, but people see that and they take advantage of it, and you don't deserve it. So you're being told basically like the red flag, like, you're good, keep being like that, keep attracting good people, keep being a good person. But the second you notice this, drop them. Get out. I see you. You've identified yourself. Bye. and demand and expect more from life. And also, like, I will say this, when we have the Six of Swords, this is somebody who is helping other people out, but sometimes to their own detriment. These are not always the people that are going to help you in the long run. You might lift them up, and then lift them up in a way where they climb on top of you and continue to go high up, and then you're kind of pushed down in the process because they used you as a ladder. That's something to take note of. Now, the Lover's card is different. It doesn't feel like the person around you right now, the people around you right now are doing that. You're in a good way, but this is something to keep in mind. But you will know how to identify that, so all is good. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out like you would not believe. Have a lovely day. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.